It's the 50 and ups that are all voting Liberal.
Absolutely it is. And you want to know why, Mario? Let's get into it. So the 50 and ups have worked their entire lives to build a retirement savings for themselves. RSPs, pensions, whatever it is. They've busted their asses to provide both for their families as well as create a pension and retirement fund for themselves. And the people in this age group are also old enough to remember when Stephen Harper was in government and the horrible job he did. We remember when he sold off the wheat board to China, and he sold all of our crown corporations, our CP Rail, our Air Canada. We all know how ticket prices are with Air Canada now, how he's sold off pretty much every crown corporation that we had. And the only one we were able to keep safe was the CBC, which now Pierre wants to get rid of. So that's a heck of a lot of revenue that our country lost. And then you make all these comments about our GDP per capita. Let me explain something. GDP capita is a completely useless number. GDP per capita doesn't apply if you're a student. If you import 500,000 students from another country and those students are all going to school, they might be working a part-time job here and there, but basically speaking, they don't provide income. Therefore, they don't provide taxes. Therefore, they don't create a product to sell to generate revenue for this country. Therefore, they don't contribute to the GDP. So GDP per capita means nothing when you import 500,000 people and add them into the equation. I'm sorry, I'd rather take the opinion of a world-renowned economist who was praised at every single job he ever did, including by Stephen Harper when he worked for him, than take the word of a guy who used to be a paperboy and has now been sitting in Parliament for 20 years doing nothing. He's voted literally against anything to do with women's rights in this country. And for those of you who want to say, oh, he just didn't agree with the wording in the bill and that's why he didn't pass it. Well, if that was the case and he just didn't agree with the wording, he could have reworded the bill and sent it through for votes. But he didn't. He's been there for 20 years living on the government dime and has not put forth one bill. Oh, sorry, he did, but everybody voted it down. But he has not put forward and gotten approved one bill in his tenure. The actual goal of the opposition party in government is to keep the government in check, to oppose bills if they feel that they're not fair. And that's up to the Conservatives, the Liberals, and the NDP, and the Greens, and the Bloc. All parties are meant to keep other parties in check. If one party tries to put through a bill but maybe has too much stuff hidden in the background and the wording's not correct, absolutely it's your job to oppose that bill. But then if you don't agree with the bill, make a new one. Rewrite it with the wording that you want. So this guy's literally been employed for 20 years by the government. He's worth $25 million. He lives in a mansion. He has someone do his grocery shopping for him. He doesn't understand what it's like to work your whole life and make a pension and save up with your RSPs and pay off your home so that your children can be left with something. He doesn't know about any of that. Now, this is the same guy that'll be righteous and sit there and tell you that Mark Carney is a rich man and working in a rich man's world with all the corporations. I don't know. If I was the head of the Bank of Canada, the head of the Bank of Inland, one of the chairmen in a gigantic multinational corporation, and I was now running for Prime Minister of Canada for the first time, I'm pretty sure between $5 and $6 million net worth is pretty fair, especially for someone who's an economist and knows how to invest money. There's people in my life that I know that have invested intelligently and could have, up to $1 million in savings. And they're not rich people. They're not corporate people. They're just people that have worked hard their lives, invested in some, half decent stocks or whatever. And now they've got $1 million in retirement savings. So for Mark Carney to have between $5 and $6 million, ooh, that's scary. And to be honest with you, the guy was making more money working for Brookfield. If he was all about the money and all about the corporations, he'd have stayed there. But he didn't. Because he saw that his country needed help. He saw that his country's sovereignty was being threatened by another nation. And he saw that he had the skills and capabilities to be able to give us a hand and help us through it. Because you know what? He believes in his country and he believes in what we are as a people. And if you don't want to take my word for it, go read his book, Values. It's absolutely fantastic. And you know what? There's one quote out of the book that's circulating on the internet right now about him talking about being a totally socialist country, blah, blah, blah. That's one quote that was taken out of context, and it's like not even close to the belief system that this man has. This tells me that this man is about our country. He cares about the people around him. He cares about his family. He cares about the people that were in his neighborhood when he was growing up. He understands the things that they went through, and he cares. Pierre Poilievre entered politics 20 years ago. Since he was a teen, he's been involved in politics. That's all he's ever known, and that's all he's ever done. Do you think he's been on the side of the street playing hockey with the kids in the street? No, I highly doubt it. He's been brought up with the rich elites. Mark Carney used to be a goalie playing hockey in his hometown in Northwest Territories. I'm sorry, but Northwest Territories love you guys, but it's not the biggest, most hubbub bustle place for commerce. So can we just stop with the conspiracy theories? Can we just stop? Can we just stop for a minute and say, you know what? The purpose of government is to move the people forward. And if you are the official leader of the opposition, your goal is to hold them accountable, but not block everything they're trying to do. And all Pierre Poilievre does is try to block what they want to do because he has ideological things that he wants to push. Not the right thing, not what the people want, not what the people have voted for. He wants to do what he wants based on his ideological values. He doesn't speak for the rest of Canadians. And for those of us that are between our 40s and 50s who have worked our whole lives, we see through the story. We see through the lie. We see by reading the Conservative Party declaration the things that they actually stand for, not the things coming out of his mouth. Because I don't know if anybody's been paying attention, but somebody down south promised a whole lot of things during his election and lied about every single one of them. And since that guy promotes our guy, you can tell that his campaign is running exactly the same way. And unfortunately, it's people like you that are spreading propaganda that the polls are wrong and that we shouldn't trust the polls. If you are setting up this society to believe that the polls are not real, you are setting people up to riot if he loses the election. That is not constructive, and that is not healthy for this country. That rhetoric needs to be shut down right now. The only electronic voting machines that we have in this country are in Ontario, and it's only for the Ontario election. Every other voting station in the country is still by paper. You would have to be extremely talented and extremely rich to monitor and change any of the votes in this country after an election. And our country, not like the United States, where lobbyists can pay their politicians money to get into power. In Canada, we protect that. You can't pay a politician to do what you want, at least in public. So our Canadian democratic process is actually one of the better and safer democratic processes in the world. Can we make adjustments to it to make it better? Yes, but that's a whole other topic. But whatever the results of this election end up being, they will be correct. Full stop. No excuses. And anybody that tries to push the rhetoric that it's not is absolutely wrong. And the reason why we need to shut it down is because we need this revolution of rude people to die. And if we encourage them to stop the steal, it's just going to continue. The election will be over. We'll finally have a prime minister that we think we can, move us forward in the world. And you're still going to have this idiot on the other side holding up anything that he wants to pass in government, holding up anything because he's going to keep saying that he was not elected and that the election was stolen. We are not the United States of America. We do not want that here. So please stop following this information. Stop believing this rhetoric. Understand that the people in their 40s and 50s have lived their lives, and we are smart enough to be giving you this information. I'm not saying everyone in my age group is smarter than anyone else, but we do have a lot of life experience. We have learned a lot of things along the way, and you would be wise to at least listen to what we have to say. If you're 20 years old and voting for the first time in your life, and you're standing there listening to this guy with all of his information, and you think that's being educated, I'm sorry, but you're mistaken. Let's stop the hate, Canada. Let's start loving each other. Even the people voting Conservative, ask them what their fears are. Ask them why they're afraid to vote Liberal. Ask them what Pierre's going to do for them and get them to answer that question. Don't fight. Don't engage. Don't do anything if they're just going to come at you with negativity. Sit down and ask them how they feel and deal with how they feel, and you might just change a mind here or there. And if you can't, well, at least you know you tried. Elbows up, Canada.